Well, hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. As you can probably tell by the state of the workshop, there's not a lot of progress been made in here on the GL1000. That's because most of the progress has been made elsewhere, either inside on my laptop looking for parts that are missing, or visiting various shows, etc. Motorcycle auto jumps, that sort of thing. So I've just come back from the Stafford show. So for those of you not in the UK, the Stafford show is a large motorcycle show which includes an auto jumble, lots of very shiny concourse bikes, lots of stands, not so much manufacturers of motorcycles, but manufacturers of parts, consumables, all those sorts of things. And it's the show's sponsored by these guys, Classic Motorcycle Mechanics, and my subscription to this had actually run out. So while I was there, they had a show offer on, which was if you signed up, you got 12, actually it would be 13 issues of this for a very good price, and they were giving away some freebies as well. So you can't say no to a freebie. So they were giving away these Meguiar's 6-pack of microfiber cloths, and then this case of Meguiar's cleaning products. Well, there's sort of 2 products, I think it was. Let's open this up and we'll have a look. Yeah, so they were basically giving away what effectively is a wash and wax. Just get that out of there. Yeah, so it's a wash and wax, but also it comes with this extra container on the side, and this is a SiO2 boost, whatever that means. But basically, apparently you mix these 2 products together, the wash and wax and this whatever this is, and it's meant to improve the water beading on the surface of your plastics, your tanks, all the rest of it. So and then also, just to make it even more shiny, they came with this ceramic clay, which includes the product itself plus a pad, a clay pad. I've never used anything like this before, so I think what I'll probably do with this stuff is at some point I'll do a review on it. I'm not sponsored by these guys, but they were kind enough to be giving this stuff away at the show. So I'm not a great fan of cleaning bikes, if I'm perfectly honest. That's because I don't usually get them wet, but I will give this a go. We'll do a review on it, see how it works, but that'll be in another episode. So back to the GL1000. I'm starting to put parts in boxes. So for instance, here we've got a lot of the parts, not all of them yet, but the parts that need chroming, mud guards, indicators which I've stripped, headlight bezels, grab rail, those sorts of parts. And this is where one of the problem comes when you've bought a bike that effectively is in bits. You don't quite know what you've got. Perfect example is this mud guard, this rear mud guard. The tail light, which came with the bike, doesn't fit because the holes for mounting this are in completely the wrong place. So on this particular mud guard, the rear holes, mounting holes, are here, and the front mounting holes are here. There are no holes up here to mount that at all. So it seems to me what I've ended up with here is a UK spec taillight assembly, and that I think might be an American mudguard, or possibly from a different market, but those holes are not in the right place. They need to be right up there. So I've been busy doing things like trying to source an English mudguard that will go with my English taillight assembly. I've also managed to buy from a site I didn't know existed called Goldwing.nl, so they're in the Netherlands. I've managed to source the bottom clamps for the forks, because one of those was missing. I've had to buy them as a pair, but I think I've been quite lucky to find those, because most people want you to buy the entire fork assembly, including the brackets at the bottom, and obviously there's no point me doing that because I've already got the forks. So I haven't managed to find those. They haven't arrived yet, but they have been ordered, so I'm hoping they should turn up in the next few days. One of the other parts I had missing, or have got missing, is this radiator grill here. And the problem with trying to source these parts is you see them on eBay or Marketplace, wherever it is, but you never quite know whether they're going to fit on your particular model of bike or not. So the way to check that is get yourself the genuine Honda parts catalogue, parts list. I know I bang on about this, but it really is invaluable when it comes to particularly a bike that you're not particularly used to, and you need to try and source some of these parts. So to give you an idea, so number 25 is that grill that I need, and if we look down here, part number 25, grill radiator, there is only one part number for it, and it does say there's one of them on the bike, and it fits the 1000, the limited, the K1 and the K2. So I know that as long as I get a grill that came off a GL1000, one of those models, all the way up to, so from the 75 all the way up to 79, I'm guaranteed that that part, assuming it's a genuine part, is going to fit on my bike. Now that's not always the case with every part. So for instance, that mudguard we just looked at is a perfect example of that. So this is the page, or where it starts, for the tail light assembly, for instance. So this tail light is for these markets, America and whatever these other markets are. They're all listed in the front of the book, and you can see that it's quite a small assembly compared to the UK one, or the English one. If we turn the page over, I think that's the same market, yeah. And then we get to this one, which is for the limited, the K1, the English market, which is E. ED is the European direct sales market, and F, I'm guessing, is France. And this looks entirely different to the one we just looked at. If I go from that one over to that one, they're just, sorry about the strobing, they are entirely different assemblies. And it's quite clear that the spacing of the holes is different on that one. And then if we turn over again, we've got yet another version, which again has got very small spacings on the holes, and a round tail light in this particular case. So that's for the K1, and that's G, which I'm guessing is, well, it's going to be Germany, isn't it? So obviously different markets have different requirements when it comes to vehicles on the road and what they're allowed to do, different rating bulbs, different heights for where they want tail lights to be, how they want indicators to be fitted, all sorts of different things. So again, these guides are invaluable for working out exactly which one you need. So this one, which is the English one, for instance, number 11, which is, where are we, bracket for the number plate. Okay, so it says we need one of those, but there are different part numbers for these brackets. So there was one for the limited, and then there was one for the K1 in England. Okay, so that basically means we need that top number there. Now, I appreciate that you look on eBay or whatever, and most people aren't going to put the exact part number that you need, but at least you can look generally at the picture and get an idea of the reference, or reference the picture I should say, and see if it looks the same thing as what you need. So one final example of that is on this particular section, which is for the wiring harness ignition coil and the horn. This shows two different horns, 21 and 20. Now, I've only ever seen that type of horn which sort of fits sideways on the frame of the bike and points outwards with a great big chrome front on it. With the the horn noise, if you like, comes out the bottom of this. And every single bike I think I've ever seen has got one of those on, and the reason I think for that is because if we come down here, we look at part number 20, it says it fitted on the K1, which is what I've got, but not in the English market. Now the other part number, 21, here, fitted on the Limited and the K1 in the English market. So my bike actually came with that horn, and I assume that was entirely the wrong horn, because every bike I've seen has got that, and I think that's because most bikes that you see are imports from America, or pictures you see are American bikes, because they obviously sold there way more than they did over here. But I know mine was a UK registered bike from new, so actually that horn is correct. So I started trying to find one of these horns, and we're going to have to pay quite a lot of money for one, even though that horn is the correct one and I've already got it. And it didn't dawn on me until I started to look in here that that was the case. So again, these are great references from that point of view. This is the definitive reference for what was on the bike when it left the factory. Right, that's enough waffling. Time to make a start on some other bits. So the objective now is to start stripping down the sub-assemblies. I'm putting parts in one box that I'm going to tackle myself, or send out possibly to a specialist like the Radiator. There'll be boxes of things like bits that need chroming. Then there's boxes of things that need, well, again, that needs chroming. They need plating, all of this stuff needs plating. These are generally parts that are okay, just need cleaning up. So that's the general process, splitting all these parts up into their, taking all the subcomponents apart, I should say, and then putting them all in their respective boxes. And then while all the other bits are away, so the next stage of the process will be to send away all these parts, so that people can be getting on with powder coating, painting, whatever it happens to be, sorting the radiator out, sorting the chroming out, sorting the plating out, while I'm getting on with all the other bits. And then hopefully the whole thing will come back together, and then we can start putting it all back, but obviously that's a long way in the future. So let's get on and get some of these assemblies stripped. one of my earlier videos, you may have seen I pressure tested the cooling system on this, so I know that the radiator is okay. It doesn't look particularly brilliant, but it does hold pressure. So oops, let that go. So that's good. So it looks a bit rusty in places, but what I'll do is I'll probably just spray it black. I'll show you the face of it in a bit. Or the core, I suppose I can have it re-cored. Right, just lift off. And then obviously that's going in the box of parts to be painted. Washer I've lost. I imagine the Honda ones, but yeah, I wonder if that was black. I know it was painted red, wasn't it? By the looks of it. Right, the box of bits to be painted. So it's not bad. It's you know, some of it's a bit dented in and messed around. Don't know. I mean, there's meant to be a grill goes over this. I think by the time I've sprayed all that black, and we've got a grill on the front, it shouldn't look too bad. But I'm going to strip it anyway, and then we'll take it from there. Original. I could be wrong. Might be original Honda. I don't think they normally use those sorts of clamps, if I'm honest, but maybe they do. Anyway, paint it. And then on the back we've got our fan assembly, which will be a 12-volt assembly. I don't know whether this works or not. I suppose now might be a reasonable time to test it. I take it off. So I've got a variable power supply here, which I use for electroplating. So I've set that to 12 volts, 1.5 amps, which should be sufficient. Switch the output to that on, and then just connect this to the fan lead. Yeah, that's working. Perfect. Okay, so that's good to go. That just needs the shroud and everything taken off and cleaning up by the looks of it. So the fan itself looks like it's just held on with 3 bolts. Over there. Okay. There's our fan, ready to be cleaned up and sorted out. Up. So that just leaves us with the bare radiator, apart from yeah, that's all part of it. So I've just got the 4 grommets to take out, and that's ready to then either be re-cored or whatever we decide to do with that. Okay, it's time to take a look at the clocks. So what I like to do is, before I strip anything, just take stock of where we're at with it before we start. So the first thing to mention about these is that these are actually the wrong clocks for this bike. But by that I mean they're off a later version, because the 1976 version of the bike had green-faced clocks, not blue-faced clocks like these. If I can find the temperature gauge, I can show you what they should look like. So the this green is what these clocks should look like, and they all match. I don't know how many years they did the green for. It may have just been the 1 year. I think certainly on the 77 they turned to blue and then they were black, I think. So what else can we say about this? Obviously I have done some research. One of the most important things is when you're going to do a bike, rather than just dive into it, do as much research as you possibly can and find out as much about the bikes as you possibly can. That can be from all sorts of sources these days. It can be manuals that you can buy like we looked at earlier. It can be joining forums, joining Facebook pages for these bikes, joining the owners club, looking in magazines, all sorts of places these days. It's much easier these days than it ever used to be, although perhaps sourcing parts is actually harder because obviously there's not as many around these days. But do your homework before you start. I've discovered with these that somebody used to actually completely refurbish these. You could send them off and I don't know how much it costs, but they'd come back and they'd look like new. Well, at least the site I looked at, they've now stopped doing that, but they are selling the kits to be able to refurbish them. So they sell the faces, they sell the dials and all the rest of it, so you can make these look, you can refurbish them yourself, basically. So looking at this, I know I can get the dials themselves. I can certainly put a little dab of red paint on the ends of these. I won't need to do that faded part there because we're going to be replacing that anyway. The lettering on the neutral, high beam and oil light have faded off. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get that back. I might be able to source another one of these. In fact, I've got one of these and I think it's better condition than that one, so we might use that. The same site I can get the dials from, I've noticed I can get this rubber grommet from, which goes on here, so that's good. The rubber sealing ring around here, and I guess that also acts as a damper, is clearly all perished. I have done some research and I know that some people have used inner tubes to replace this. So they cut some inner tube, fold it over and then put it in there, and from what I've seen it does look just like they're supposed to look, so that might be an option. Then I did notice that you can still buy these original Honda parts. They list it for I think the CB750 or possibly a later Goldwing, but apparently it will fit the 1000. So we should be sorted on that front. And then if we turn this over, we've actually got a large crack here on the back of this cover, so we need to address that somehow. We'll look at sorting that out. And the bracket itself has been hand painted, so that will need to be taken back to bare metal and then resprayed. We've got differing bolts on here. We've got a standard bolt on that side, and we've got an acorn nut, sorry, I should say nuts. Standard nut on that side, we've got an acorn nut on this side. So I'm guessing it was an acorn nut, but again we can reference that in the parts manual. We know exactly what will go on there, so we can sort that out as well. I suppose the first thing to do before we even start to think about whether it's worth spending money on these particular clocks is do the clocks work anyway? So the next thing to do is to try and test those. What I'm going to do to test these out is I've got the clutch of the speedo cable, to be honest. That must be I think it was the speedo cable. Anyway, doesn't matter. The point is the square end on this is the same as the square end that goes into both of these, so we can test both gauges with this one cable. So the other end just has a flat across it, a slot across it I should say, so I can put a screwdriver in there, electric screwdriver, and we can spin the screwdriver up and see if the gauges work. So let's go for this one for a start. Spin that on there. Turn this round so you can see it. And then all I'm using is, say, just this electric screwdriver, which I'm going to put in there, and then spin this and see what we get. Oh, okay. Let's see if we can redline it. Okay, so that seems to be moving pretty nicely. Alright, so we know the rev count is good. Let's have a look at the speedo and see whether we've got the same result with that. And if we have, that'll be a real bonus because it means we don't have to strip the clocks. To try and find out what's wrong with them or send them off for repair somewhere. Just means we've got to refurbish them from the point of view, restore them from the point of view of the dials and all the bits I've just talked about. Okay, right, so we're now back onto the speedo, Fingers crossed. Oh. Okay, I was a bit sluggish to get going. Oh no, we're all right. Hopefully you can see that. "60 miles an hour. It's going to be a while before we're doing that, I think, but yeah, it is a little bit sluggish to leave the stop, but I'm sure once the bike's been run up a few times, that'll be okay. Yeah, needle's responding quite nicely. I can see the clocks going round, the odometer and that going round as well. So they're both working, and I'm able to reset the trip as well. So I'm really happy with that. That's an absolute bonus, because these things can be properly expensive to repair if they're not working. So I just need to be really careful when I strip these down to put these new faces on. But yeah, no, happy with that. Right. Let's carry on stripping this down. Okay, first job is to remove, well, looks like there's 3 screws holding on. I think there might meant to be 4. Yeah, let's get these out and see what we found. Yeah, they're a bit chewed up, these. Okay, right. Oh, okay. Right, so that's our cover off, which has exposed our lamps. So we'll leave all that in there as assembly for the moment. What have we got now? Okay, so that does all look like one assembly that's going to come out once this back cover's off. So let's have a look at getting that cover off, and then hopefully we can pull the cable through. I think this cover's been done up a little bit too tight, hence the reason that that's perhaps cracked there. Let's screw that. Okay, yeah, in fact there's a repair on the back of that already. Someone's put, looks like araldite or something on there. Hopefully we can remove this. Okay, looks like we might actually need to remove all the connectors that go into the actual clocks themselves, because of course there's, thinking about it, there's going to be electrical connectors going to the clocks for the lights. They're relatively straightforward on these older bikes. He says, famous last words. Hopefully we'll be okay. Trial and error. Nice and patient, no rush. That's it. Let's read all those out of there. That one. You want to be a little bit careful with these pulling cables through like this, because you know they are quite old. They may well be brittle. Okay, so that's that assembly off. That can go in the box of electrical parts to be cleaned up and sorted out, which look somewhat chewed up to say the least. That doesn't look too bad. The problem with this bike I've got is that because it was in bits. Obviously, I don't know whether any of the parts that came with it were off this bike. I've also got duplicates of quite a few bits, but the other thing is there's quite a few bits on this bike that have been chromed, or chrome parts have been put on and they shouldn't have been. So the triangular front engine mountings, they're not supposed to be chrome on a 76, and they are. The side stand is chrome and it shouldn't be. So I keep looking at a lot of these little chrome screws and things, thinking, well, should they have been chrome or not? Things like that. Should that have been chromed, or should it have been like that? I don't know. These I can work out from the parts manual. You know, that'll just be called a panhead screw M6 by whatever, I don't know, it's M4, sorry, M4 or 6 or whatever it is, by 4mm or something, but it won't necessarily tell you whether it's chromed. That's is a bigger issue. So you can only do that really by looking at pictures over and over again of your particular model year of bike and seeing what the majority of them use, and then working it out from there. I know it's all a bit, you know, academic these days, and it depends how far you want to go with it as far as it going back to standard goes. Right, okay, so we've got the tacho out there with the temperature gauge. This is clearly quite rusty. Of course, once it's back in there, it's not going to be a big deal because you can't see it. I'm pretty sure that chrome ring around there, which you can see, is going to clean up okay. So this is where you hit your sort of, how far do you want to take this? Because if this was going to be a concours standard bike, what you would be doing is taking all of this apart and cleaning all this up, so that you know when you put it back in there, it's as good as when it left the factory. From an aesthetic point of view, because once that's in there, you can't see any of that. What I'm going to do is I'll clean that up so it won't, so I'll get all the rust off it. But I'm really not too worried about what the rest of this looks like from the point of view of you can't see it. As long as it's not going to corrode any further, you know, I'm happy with that as far as a restoration goes. So that can go onto one side. I suppose I should know to which side these came out of, but I'm sure I can work that one out when I put it back together. Yeah, exactly the same with this one. But that outer ring will clean up without any problem. This black bezel can be painted. That's not going to be a problem. And I can replace this rubber grommet in there. So, yep, I'm happy with those. Which leaves us with the frame itself. So we've got these rubber parts in here, which I say have all perished. These obviously are the original ones. I think on the, you can buy a later one, like I say, which fits in here, but I think some of these cutouts don't quite line up. But again, so you have to sort of cut those away to get them to fit. This one should just pull out as well. Okay, that's those out. Which just leaves us with the case. So obviously these are corroded. But you know what, that chrome is not in bad condition. So that'll obviously just get shot blasted, cleaned up and sprayed. That can go in the box of parts for me to sort out. That just leaves these parts here. And okay, right. So yeah, that's the clocks taken apart. Let's just have a look at these. On closer inspection, I can see now some rust showing through these and some pitting on these. It's a shame because the actual bezel itself is in serviceable condition, but the problem is because this is rusting underneath where the screws were, and of course it's rusted inside, it's only going to come through from the inside. So yep, they're going to go in the box of things to be chromed. Okay, so final bit of the puzzle for, or disassembly for today, is the swing arm, and I've taken the bushes out of each side of this. They're all done. What that's left us with is, turn this round, we've got our universal joint in this end, and we can't push that out to get it out of the shaft because it's too large. If you remember back to the video where we were talking about where the circlip is, to get this off the bike, off the final drive shaft coming out of the bike, the circlip is actually in here, and it sits just there, and it's really difficult to get in because that gap there is not very wide. So you need a pair of circlip pliers with a really small angle on them, or a small protrusion on them I should say, to get in there. I do know somebody who's got some proper Honda circlip pliers, so I'm probably going to try and borrow them when I come to put it all back together. Anyway, so to get this shaft out of here, we've got to get it out the other end. And if I turn this around, sorry about the shaky camera, if I push the UJ from the other end, that's as far as it'll go. I can't get it out any further than that because it's hitting the other side, hitting the other end. So this has got to come off, and if we have a peer, get a torch in there, you should be able to see a circlip around the inner part of that right at the end. So I've got to get that circlip off, and then once that circlip's off, this section should come away, and then I should be able to pull the whole shaft out the other end. Okay, so I've got my circlip pliers, so let's see if we can get this out. Okay, right, so there's our circlip, which I've squished a bit too hard, and it's taken out of shape, but we'll replace these anyway, so that's that. I'm just going to put some gloves on. Okay, so what should happen now, I think, is this should come off, which it does. So you can see the splines hopefully in the end of that. And then what should happen is I should be able to pull the universal joint out from this end on its shaft. There we go. So that's out. I can clean that up in the parts washer. We can inspect that. So basically that whole assembly is the universal joint at that end, splines at this end, matching splines on there, that goes on there, circlip in that end. So that's how that assembly comes apart. Okay, so that's it for this very messy, greasy video. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's been useful if you're doing the same thing as me right now. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next video.